Identity theft is not a joke, Michael.
Let's talk tech.
Welcome to News.exe, the best technology-centric news show on the Burk IT YouTube channel, guaranteed. I'm Noah Parker.
And I'm Michael Trotter Lawson. This week we discuss your digital identity and what you can do to keep it secure. But first, it's time for notable news you need to know.
Google is going after Apple for dragging their feet on improving their cross-device texting technology. Many iPhone users have long lamented the green message bubbles that come with cross-device messaging, as well as poor quality compressed videos, the lack of read receipts, and other headaches. Google blames Apple as the company converts text sent between iPhones and Androids into what's called SMS and MMS, both of which are decades-old methods of sending text-only messages from device to device. Google is now pushing Apple to use something called rich communication services, which it says is the modern industry standard, meant to improve how people can send not only texts, but also media such as emojis, videos, and photos. As of the filming of this video, Apple has not responded.
As Meta attempts to lay the groundwork for the metaverse, famous entrepreneur, Shark Tank star, and owner of the best professional sports team in Dallas, Mark Cuban, is not impressed by the virtual real estate market. And before I continue, some of you may have some thoughts about that claim that I just made, but how many championships have the Cowboys won in my 23-year lifespan? Back on topic, Cuban is quoted saying, "The worst part is that people are buying real estate in these places. That is the dumbest ever," end quote. What gives metaverse land value, in theory, is the same two principles of physical real estate: scarcity and location. However, experts claim that this doesn't apply to the metaverse because you can't artificially introduce scarcity. Cuban agrees, saying, quote, "It's not even as good as a URL or an ENS because there's unlimited volumes that you can create," end quote. This is yet another bump in the road for Meta and the metaverse, as so much of the excitement around the project has cooled off, and many are left speculating whether the metaverse is a worthwhile investment at all.
2 weeks ago, Amazon acquired iRobot, the company behind the Roomba brand of robot vacuums. The move has some data privacy expert and antitrust researchers concerned, saying the tech giant could use the purchase to acquire personal information from inside users' homes. Evan Greer, the director of the nonprofit digital rights advocacy organization Fight for the Future, said, quote, "People tend to think of Amazon as an online seller company, but really, Amazon is a surveillance company. That is the core of its business model, and that's what drives its monopoly power and profit," end quote. And if you're worried about your TV spying on you or your smart fridge collecting data, you should know that vacuums have already been collecting dirt on people for years. Another expert claimed this, quote, "may be the most dangerous, threatening acquisition in the company's history," end quote.
Iran has announced that it used cryptocurrency to pay for imports, raising the prospect that the company is using digital assets to evade sanctions. Trade Minister Alireza Payman Pak revealed the transaction with a tweet, which translates to, quote, "This week, the first official import order was successfully placed with cryptocurrency worth $10 million. By the end of September, the use of cryptocurrencies and smart contracts will be widespread in foreign trade with the target countries," end quote. This is just the latest in Iran's ongoing efforts to evade sanctions. While cryptocurrency's anonymity has been largely disproved, trades in digital assets are not regulated. So sanctions enforcement is much more complex if Iran and its trading partners use crypto instead of traditional fiat currencies. Iran will be in a shock once the price of crypto falls immediately after they buy in, of course emulating the experience of everyone with, quote, "aspiring entrepreneur" in their Twitter bio.
Printer company Epson gained some scrutiny in recent weeks after the company disabled a printer that was otherwise working fine, leading to accusations of planned obsolescence. This controversy arose from a tweet reading, My wife's very expensive printer just gave a message saying it had reached the end of its service life and proceeded to brick itself. This isn't anything new for Epson printers, sadly. Reports going back several years mention an infamous error message that reads, "Parts inside the printer have reached the end of their service life." Epson's endorsed solutions require you to pay to service the printer or replace it entirely, despite the existence of effective DIY solutions. This scenario is a prime example of why so many are fighting for the right to repair their own hardware, and why so many Disney princesses are still awaiting the arrival of their prince.
A new PayPal phishing scam uses legitimate invoices to reach its victims' inboxes. Avanan, a company specializing in email security, has seen hackers use PayPal to send malicious invoices and request payments. The hackers send the email from PayPal's domain using a free PayPal account that they have signed up for, with the email body spoofing brands like Norton. Because the emails with the illegitimate invoice are genuinely coming from PayPal, they are almost certainly going to make it to a user's inbox. The goal of this scam is twofold. One, because the invoice comes from PayPal, victims must call the phone number provided by the scammer on the invoice. This gives the scammers the victim's phone number, which can then be used for future scams. And two, the scammers attempt to get the victims to pay the invoice, obtaining their credit card details. The second option certainly seems worse on face value, but it is worth noting that the first option has the danger of actually talking to a stranger on the phone, which is one of the worst things imaginable in 2022.
Facebook's parent company, Meta, has announced that they are testing end-to-end encryption on Messenger, the popular messaging app tied to Facebook. Some users of the app will have their messages encrypted end-to-end by default and could store encrypted backups of their messages. According to a Meta spokesperson, the timing of the test is unrelated to the high-profile abortion case in Nebraska that became public this week. In that case, the company complied with the search warrant and handed over to police the messages of a 17-year-old accused of having an illegal abortion. End-to-end encryption of those messages and their storage would have prevented Meta from complying with the search warrant, forcing authorities to acquire the user's phone directly. Secure storage tests began last week, though only on Android and iOS devices.
Starlink satellites can seemingly be hacked by a $25 homemade device. Lennart Wouters, who works at Belgian University KU Leuven, showcased how to infiltrate the satellite dishes at a Black Hat security conference. Now, Starlink was started by Elon Musk, billionaire, entrepreneur, and the worst SNL host of all time, with the aim of providing internet connections around the world. The company has attracted over 500,000 subscribers. However, Wouters has now found a way to hack into the dishes due to various hardware vulnerabilities. If left exposed, this would give threat actors free rein to access Starlink's systems and then run custom codes on the network's devices. He accomplished this using a tool formed via a custom circuit board, with the price of the overall parts required for the device costing just $25. A public update was confirmed to be in the works by Starlink, but Wouters stressed the nature of the company's operations exposes them either way. Quote, "The widespread availability of Starlink user terminals exposes them to hardware hackers and opens the door for an attacker to freely explore the network." End quote.
That's all for today's notable news you need to know, which means it's almost time for our main story. But first, this. The best technology-centric show on the Burk IT YouTube channel, guaranteed. I'm no
And I'm Michael Lawson.
Quote, "We want to make Photoshop more and easier for more people to it out and experience the product.
Devoutly to be to 3D.
3D have been made to produce models out of meat and more.
This is where Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, the world's most lizard person,
Apple has the ability to prevent that from working in the other.
The autonomous radar-guided drones, dubbed drone by the firm.
Up to this point, VR has been plagued by a lack of big, quality much like the Xbox.
If you've got the free time to watch hours on YouTube, you can try and fail to something before you give up after wasting your entire Saturday.
You've had a hot dog or a right?
And I quote, "I think it's worth it. Guarantees success," end quote.
Of that seemingly impressive, however, many Americans affected will not see any of that.
The agreement will release Google from claims that it, quote, paid women in cover positions less than it paid men for substantially similar work, that Google paid women to lower levels than it paid men, and that Google failed to pay all wages due to employees upon them.
Some people find it strange, and then he ends up himself after finally signing his divorce papers.
Today, our main story is about identity management, also known as identity and access management, but this is also just shortened to IDM, IAM, or IDAM. For the purposes of this video, we'll be using IDM. Now, IDM is the organizational and technical processes for first registering and authorizing access rights in the configuration phase, and then the operation phase for identifying, authenticating, and controlling individuals or groups of people who have access to applications, systems, or networks based on previously authorized access rights. In English, it's the information websites and applications have on their users. This includes login information as well as tracking users' activities on their apps. This information is coalesced into a person's digital identity.
Anyone who uses the internet at any kind of frequency has a digital identity. Every time you sign up for a service or log into a website or app, you have agreed to give that information to the companies who control that service, site, or app. Why do companies want this info? In a practical sense, obviously these internet features need a way to let users come back and have a consistent account. So of course they need everyone's login information. The ultimate reason for this collection of user data is capitalism. American sculptor and video artist Richard Serra said in 1973 that, quote, "If something is free, you're the product," end quote. This has never been more true than it is today.
The internet must be monetized in some way. Companies require financial incentives to provide services. So even though most websites and apps are free, they make their money off the people who use these services. Information is the modern internet's currencies, as all these companies take their users' data and sell it, primarily to advertisers. This is where targeting advertising comes from. The advertisers use the information they have on people to serve them ads that they are most likely to react to. So, if you're getting what you believe are some particularly strange ads, then maybe it's time to do some personal introspection. Either that, or make sure your computer is locked when you walk away from it. Jared. Sorry about that. Gosh. However, this is only the most common use of this digital identity. There are many more questionable and dangerous uses of this information.
You may be under the impression that it's no big deal to have this information out there. Many people would rather be served ads that are more relevant to them, and indeed, if that's all there was to this collection of data, there would be no issues. The greatest misconception about an individual's digital identity is that it cannot be used to figure out the person's real-life identity. This is extremely, dangerously untrue. Data brokers, companies that exist to compile and sell personal data, are very underregulated. They can sell their information to basically anyone. This information can include names, phone numbers, emails, specific location data, IP addresses, and more. Even when apps claim they de-identify the information they sell to data brokers, that information can often be easily extrapolated to determine that person's identity anyway.
With so much personal identifying information out there, it is important to know the steps you can take to control your digital identity. Many of these steps do involve sacrificing some level of convenience for the sake of security, but depending on your life circumstances, that could be very much worthwhile. You should know that stalkers have bought user data to get closer to their targets, and the government is not at all above using data brokers to acquire data on criminal suspects without needing a warrant. So, that one time you pirated season 5 of Game of Thrones because your free trial to HBO Max ran out, they are coming for you. With that in mind, phones do allow you to turn off the ability for apps to ask for your tracking information, and web browsers like DuckDuckGo and Mozilla Firefox are better for concealing user data. However, it is still unlikely that you will be able to go about your normal online business without giving up some user data to data brokers. Apps like Life360 or weather applications require location data to work, and it is very likely that they will or already have sold your information.
The most important thing you can do regarding your online security is ensuring your login information is secure. If you don't already, use different passwords for all of your accounts online. You don't want to end up like that guy who sang Danger Zone. He lost his personal data and a hacker ended up with all of his Kenny logins. Obviously, it is impossible for a human to keep track of that many passwords in their head, so use a password management system like 1Password, Dashlane. It is absolutely vital that you use a highly complex password to access your password manager, and always avoid using personal information within your passwords. Also, if an app offers the use of multi-factor authentication, or MFA, you should certainly take advantage of that. MFA makes it nearly impossible for bad actors to access your accounts, as that would require them to have access to your device, or in some cases, you yourself.
On the topics of logins and authentication, it is important to note the rise of using accounts like Google, Apple, or Facebook to log into third-party applications or websites. This can be very appealing, especially for convenience sake, but it is important to be wary of these practices. This is essentially companies that are not necessarily designed to be password managers acting as such. Therefore, you should treat these features as though they were a password manager. Ensure that your password for these apps and websites, meaning Google, Facebook, and Apple in this case, are especially strong, and use MFA if they have an option for it. However, ideally you just want to make a new account for each of these services. You never know what will become of these companies. Businesses like Apple, Google, and Facebook may seem like invincible titans of the internet, but just like the titans of Greek myth, they are not immune to being chopped up by their own scythe. And by chopped up, I mean into like smaller companies, like breaking up a monopoly. No one's going to murder Mark Zuckerberg.
Facebook specifically has been under a great deal of scrutiny as of late, and they are also in the process of desperately trying to revamp their business, as they have been showing signs of decline lately. The decline of Facebook has caused CEO Zuckerberg significant distress, and he asks that you respect his privacy during this time. No company is immune to failure, and if Facebook were to go under suddenly, you would likely lose access to anything depending on that login information. In addition, Facebook is also one of the companies most infamous for selling off user data. In fact, just last week, Facebook was facing major backlash for their role in the high-profile late-term abortion case mentioned earlier in the episode. Without delving into personal political viewpoints, this is still a dangerous precedent to set for data privacy.
That recent story about Facebook is very much the crux of the modern state of data privacy. The government lacks incentives to regulate this industry. Politicians depend on data brokers to tailor their campaigns for their potential voters. Plus, as aforementioned, law enforcement buys data to skirt the use of warrants and investigate suspects. Therefore, why would the government restrict a tool they have come to rely on? John Oliver, comedian and host of HBO's Last Week Tonight, made headlines for using data brokerage services to fish for data on politicians in D.C. This was an attempt to borderline blackmail Congress into acting on this matter. But as of the filming of this episode, no action has been taken. One can only assume that they have not yet seen this episode, as they would definitely not want the information that they clicked on Ted Cruz erotic fan fiction to become public. And I wish I could say I was making that up.
Securing your digital identity should be one of your top priorities in this modern age of the internet, even if you are under the impression that you have nothing to hide. Malicious individuals can use easily acquired personal identifying information to steal your identity or worse. Until Congress acts on this issue, be extra mindful of the services using your data. If you currently use 1Password for all of your accounts, acquire a password manager and change them as soon as possible. The allure of convenience is very tempting, but it is very important that convenience not overrule the safety of yourself and your family. And don't waste too much time getting your affairs in order, as the hackers are almost always Russian.
That's our show today. Come back in 2 weeks to keep updated on the most vital technology news, and consider checking out our blog and newsletter at burkitc.com.
Thanks for watching.
If you enjoyed the video, press like, and if you want to see more, subscribe to our channel.